This is a story called Aliens Anonymous, just when you thought it couldn't get worse. By radio, reports across distant interstellar outposts, under the subreddit HFS. The basement of the Galactic Rehab Center was damp, dark, and full of aliens who had experienced the same unifying trauma. Humans. They sat in a circle, perched on cheap, creaking chairs that barely supported the variety of limbs, tails, and appendages. Grolf, a slimy, many-eyed creature, squelched into the center of the group. All right, everyone, let's try to keep this session focused. Remember, we're here to share and heal. Tonight we have a special guest speaker, a Grey, but until they arrive, let's begin with our usual check-ins. Who'd like to start? Zornik, a tall, blue-scaled Sarthrexian, flicked his gills in irritation. I'll go first, he hissed. I had the worst encounter with humans this past cycle. I was studying their airports. Absolute chaos. No one knew where to go. They crammed themselves into long lines, yell at each other, and all for what? To get on a tiny metal tube that barely functions? They call it flying. The aliens around him grumbled sympathetically. Garolth nodded solemnly. Humans are inefficient. The door to the basement creaked open, and a human stumbled in. He was tall and scruffy, wearing a hoodie and jeans. His name tag, which looked hastily slapped on, read Mark. He glanced around, his eyes widening when he saw the assortment of alien life forms staring back at him. Is this AA? Mark asked, clearly confused. Zornik glared. Yes, Aliens Anonymous. You're not supposed to be here. Mark blinked, looking around again, and then his face lit up with sudden understanding. Oh crap, this is Aliens Anonymous, not Alcoholics Anonymous. That explains the, tentacles. Geralf sighed, his tentacles drooping. Yes, human. You've made a mistake. Perhaps you should leave. Mark scratched his head, but didn't move. Actually, you know what? Since I'm already here, I feel like I can contribute. I mean, I'm human. I know how much humans suck. Zornik hissed. You think you can out-complain us? You're one of them. Mark took a deep breath. Try me. There was a pause. Geralf, against his better judgment, waved one tentacle. Fine. Let's see what you've got. Zornik, still glaring at Mark, started. As I was saying, these airports, humans have no concept of order. They lose their minds at the slightest delay. I saw one nearly rip out his hair because he had to wait an extra hour to board their primitive craft. Mark chuckled darkly. Yeah, airports suck. But have you ever been on a flight where you sit next to a baby that screams for 8 hours straight while the person behind you kicks your seat? I once flew across the Atlantic with a screaming baby on my left, a guy snoring so loudly on my right, and the smell of microwaved fish wafting through the cabin. It was like being trapped in hell at 30,000 feet. The room fell silent for a moment. Crocs, the scaly, forked-tongued Torvian, spoke up next. I visited a human city last year. It was filth, trash everywhere. They built these huge landfills where they all dump their waste. They pollute their own planet like they want to drown in their own garbage. Mark nodded. Oh, the trash situation is awful. But here's a fun fact. Humans will throw perfectly good food in the trash because the expiration date says it's no good, even if it's fine. My roommate once threw out an entire pizza because it was 2 days past the date. Meanwhile, I'm eating canned beans for dinner because my landlord raised the rent again. Crocs blinked. They throw away food? Mark took a sip of his coffee, clearly warming up to this. All the time, buddy. Zornik grumbled, clearly unhappy that the human was somehow matching his misery. Well, last cycle, I was nearly run over by a human vehicle. I was cloaked, invisible to their technology, but still. They just swerve around each other with no care for anything outside their little world. Mark scoffed. Oh, I've been hit by a car. Twice. Once by a guy who was texting while driving. Didn't even stop. I rolled onto the sidewalk like a rag doll, and he just kept going. People walk like that, too. Head down, staring at their phone, walking straight into you like you don't exist. Zornik blinked. You've been hit by your own vehicles? Mark shrugged. It's pretty common. Also, don't get me started on parking tickets. Rolf, watching this unfold, rubbed his many eyes with his tentacles. I'm not sure where this is going anymore. Thraxor, The hulking Zoltharian with 3 heads chimed in, his deep voice rumbling through the room. My people once tried to conquer Earth, and we were repelled by these tanks. Huge machines with guns. One of my warriors was crushed beneath one. The humans call it a victory. Mark smirked. Tanks? You're lucky. We've got people with military-grade weapons just because they can. I had a neighbor once who owned 3 assault rifles, and his hobby was blowing up old cars in his backyard. He's got a gun collection bigger than my kitchen. Thraxor's 3 heads turned to look at each other in disbelief. You let civilians own weapons of war? Mark laughed bitterly. Let them? We encourage it. The room was silent, the aliens growing more and more baffled by each of Mark's revelations. This was supposed to be their time to vent about the horrors of human interaction, but somehow this human was outdoing them. Crocs tried again, desperate to reclaim the tone of the meeting. I was abducted by your government. They probed me, experimented on me. Mark let out a hollow chuckle. Buddy, welcome to the club. You think they treat aliens bad? Try going to the hospital in the US with no health insurance. I once had to choose between paying rent and getting an antibiotic for a sinus infection. Cost me $500 just to see a doctor for 5 minutes. Grolf blinked, his tentacles twitching in stunned confusion. They charge you to heal? Mark nodded, leaning back in his chair. Oh yeah, health is a privilege in my world. Crocs's tail flicked nervously. I don't understand. Humans do this to themselves. Mark sighed. Oh, trust me, we don't need to screw up other planets. We're too busy screwing up our own lives. I once worked 60 hours a week and still couldn't afford a vacation. Meanwhile, my boss takes 3 trips to Hawaii every year and complains about jet lag. Life's a nightmare, guys. Zornik slumped into his chair, utterly defeated. I thought we had it bad, but this? Mark shrugged. Welcome to the human experience. We hate each other just as much as you hate us, maybe even more. Grolf rubbed his many eyes, utterly deflated. I think we need to end this session early. Mark stood up, stretching his arms. Yeah, probably a good idea. I've got to go find the actual AA meeting anyways. Thanks for letting me crash, though. It's been therapeutic. The alien stared at him as he shuffled toward the door. Just before leaving, Mark turned back with a wave. Good luck with the human thing, guys. Trust me, you'll need it. The door closed behind him, leaving the aliens in stunned silence. Finally, Zornik muttered, I feel worse. Crocs hissed in agreement. The human just out-humaned us. Grolf sighed deeply. Next week, no humans. Ever. The group murmured in agreement, thoroughly defeated by the very creature they had come here to escape. Somehow, the human had managed to ruin even their support group, simply by existing. And out in the hallway, Mark was probably complaining about it to someone else, completely unaware of the havoc he had just wrought. That was a story called Aliens Anonymous, just when you thought it couldn't get worse. By Radio, reports across distant interstellar outposts, under the subreddit HFS. Thank you for watching. See you next time.